Hey guys, let's get more news about Miami Heat, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. NBA rumors, insider dishes on multi-team deal involving Jimmy Butler, Pelicans, Raptors. While the NBA still recovers from the aftershocks of the mind-boggling Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers trade, several big names remain on the market, including that of Miami Heat star forward Jimmy Butler. Butler has made no secrets of his desire to take his talents out of South Beach, but as of yet, the Heat haven't been able to find a deal that makes sense for them moving forward. There has been much speculation that a potential third team could be involved in a deal to help facilitate a Butler trade, and recently, NBA insider Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report dropped some insight as to two potential candidates for such a role. Don't forget about Brandon Ingram potentially being a matching salary back or somehow factoring in a multi-team construct with Toronto getting involved or just Toronto ending up coming in and taking on Brandon Ingram, said Fisher, per Bleacher Report on YouTube. That interest from the Raptors remains real from my understanding. Brandon Ingram makes about $36 million this year, while Butler makes $49 million, so if another salary in the $10 to $12 million range were added to the deal, Ingram could indeed be a helpful chip to help accelerate a Butler deal. Meanwhile, Ingram would take a lot of the pressure off of Scottie Barnes in Toronto, giving the Raptors a legitimate perimeter scoring threat as well as some added versatility on the defensive end of the floor. A week or two ago, it seemed like a formality that Jimmy Butler would indeed get traded. However, with just 48 hours remaining until Thursday's deadline, there's growing concern over whether Pat Riley and company may be asleep at the wheel. The fact that Luka Doncic was only able to net the Dallas Mavericks first-round pick is certainly not going to make Heat fans very hopeful about a potential return for Butler, although it should be noted that teams like the Phoenix Suns who are theoretically desperate might be willing to swing for the fences. In any case, the Heat have two more games before the trade deadline, starting on Tuesday evening on the road versus the Chicago Bulls. More trades 76ers should consider after Caleb Martin-Quentin Grimes swap. When the Philadelphia 76ers decided to trade Caleb Martin to the Dallas Mavericks for Quentin Grimes and a second-round pick mere months after stealing him away from the Miami Heat on a 4-year, $32 million contract, it turned heads around the NBA. After watching Miami botch their negotiations with the veteran wing in a major way, missing their window to extend the Nevada product before allowing the market to bear out in an incredibly unfortunate way, fans, pundits, and experts alike celebrated Philadelphia for finding a way to add a fifth starting using their cap space, with Martin expected to start at power forward next to Paul George long-term. Instead, the former Heat member played up-and-down basketball for the 76ers, playing through injuries that understandably limited his ceiling before being shipped to Dallas, after spending a game in the Wells Fargo Center's visitors' locker room, where his more playoff-ready game is a better fit for the team's current timeline than Grimes' 3-and-D upside. Now for the 76ers, this trade was almost too good to be true, as the team was able to get young, get more shooting around Joel Embiid, and add optionality with their off-season planning, as Grimes will be a restricted free agent who could remain in Philadelphia, secure the team an asset in a sign-and trade, or leave for nothing to help free up money for a new contract for Gershon Yabusele. And the best start, with the trade deadline still days away, the 76ers will have a chance to make a little more cake and eat it, too. With KJ Martin reportedly being held out of Tuesday's game due to trade pending, the 76ers have a chance to free up long-term money, free up a roster spot for Justin Edwards, and ultimately get better along the way, even if they look like sellers. 1. Make the KJ Martin trade mean something on paper. Some fans were excited to see word break that Martin was being traded to a team for cap relief, as it would free up money for Yabusele this summer. Well, as it turns out, that isn't the case, as, per Filey Sports' Derek Bodner, the real flexibility comes from getting under the luxury tax, as Martin's 2025 contract isn't guaranteed. Just to be clear, if the Sixers do dump KJ Martin's contract, they are not gaining any future flexibility by doing so, Bodner wrote. his contract for next season is not guaranteed. If they dump him, it's to get under the luxury tax. Flexibility is just a more palatable way of saying that. A disappointing development? You bet, but doing a purely cap-based deal for a player who has turned in some quality games in 2024 would be a massive bummer. But until a deal actually happens, things could change in any number of ways, as Morey could instead opt to use Martin's contract to facilitate a better deal elsewhere. One potential option? Trading Martin, Kelly Oubre, and Andre Drummond to the Chicago Bulls for Lonzo Ball. Now, as Michael Sato of Hoops Hype has reported, the Bulls are looking to move off of Ball and may not require a king's ransom to get a deal done. Chicago Bulls guard Lonzo Ball has been arguably the best comeback story in the league after returning this season from knee injuries that sidelined him since January 14, 2022, Sato wrote. Ball has received trade interest from several teams, including the Memphis Grizzlies, Detroit Pistons, Minnesota Timberwolves, and others, league sources told Hoops Hype. While the Bulls may like the idea of acquiring a young star like Martin and have an extensive history with Drummond, Oubre doesn't necessarily fit their timeline in 2025. Fortunately, in the NBA, it's pretty easy to rope in additional teams to secure additional assets or reroute a player like Oubre with a proven track record, so if the Bulls would be willing to accept Philadelphia's offer, plus a few second-round picks for good measure, they could likely double their asset return if they were willing to auction off Oubre or even Drummond for further picks. And as for the 76ers? Well, they could secure the rights to an incredibly skilled passer who is built like a wing and can comfortably guard up or down positions 1 to 3. While Maxey has made strides as a point guard, the team still misses that sort of Jeunesse quoi they once had with James Harden at the controls and could use that again, even with the loaded backcourt also featuring Grimes and Jared McCain long-term. Heat vs 76ers prediction, odds, pick, spread, February 5, 2025. With his contract set to expire at the end of the season, Ball could re-sign with the 76ers using bird rights, leave for nothing to free up cap space, or be used in a sign-in trade, which is very good news for a Philadelphia team looking to maximize their optionality for the second offseason in a row. 2. Cash out on the Paul George experiment. While the chances of a Paul George trade in 2025 appear rather unlikely, the fact that both the Golden State Warriors and the Atlanta Hawks have reached out to the team about a potential deal is incredibly interesting, especially if the teams are willing to pony up some interesting young players in favor of a more win-now asset. For the Warriors, any such deal would have to fit around some combination of the players who are seemingly always listed in mock trades involving the team: Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, and Moses Moody. Miami Heat reportedly linked to three-team trade of Jimmy Butler to Phoenix Suns. With the trade deadline approaching, the Miami Heat are part of all sorts of Jimmy Butler scenarios. There are some reports of the Heat sending Butler to the Phoenix Suns, but not in exchange for Kevin Durant. According to NBA insider Jake Fisher, Durant could be headed for a reunion with the Golden State Warriors. One reason for the significant uptick in Durant chatter, sources said, is that trading him appears to be the only way for Phoenix to acquire Miami's Jimmy Butler before Thursday's deadline, Fisher wrote. Why would the Suns want Butler if they no longer have Durant on the roster? No one asked by the Stein line has been able to furnish a good answer to that question, but rumbles persist that a scenario that transports Butler from South Beach to the desert, with Durant moving back to the Bay Area, is indeed in play. While many Heat fans are clamoring for Durant in exchange for Butler, they could wind up with former number 1 pick Andrew Wiggins in a three-team deal that includes the Suns and Warriors. The Heat have until Thursday to end the Butler saga. Despite leading the team to 2 NBA Finals since 2019, he requested a trade in late December. Butler has since been suspended by the team on 3 different occasions because of conduct detrimental to the team. And you, fan? What do you think of the Jimmy Butler situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.